ready for us, and she was trying to clean up from the prior administration, and it was pretty hairy, but we got through it. And at the end of the day, at the bottom of page 1, is the opinion we form on the financial statements. It says the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the city of Cedar Springs. So it's still a good, clean opinion. We did have to do a lot of work to get there, but it is a clean opinion. And then in addition to that, this year, because you issued bonds through the USDA, we had to expand procedures to be a single audit. So the single audit reports are way in the back, and I'll get to those at the end of the presentation. We'll kind of walk through those, but we do have to disclose any compliance and internal control matters in connection with the single audit. So we'll get there at the end. Yes.
So is that true because it's a federal bond, or is that any bond?
That's because it's a federal bond.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we were to issue a bond to build a fire barn, that doesn't impact.
Not necessarily, right? Correct. Correct. It's because of the source of the bond. It's the USDA. And it's in the year that you receive the bond proceeds that you have to have a single audit.
Okay, that was done last year,
Correct.
2016.
Right. So this is the audit for the 2016.
Yes, this was as of 30 to 60. Kind of neat history. If you don't like numbers, I'll refer you to pages 3 through 8.
That's the audit time.
That's right. Some people don't. I can't imagine, but you know. But this is a management discussion and analysis, and that kind of gives you the highlights and what's going on in the city, and explains the financial statements in a little bit more broad scope. So I'll leave you to read that if you don't like the numbers. I like the numbers, so that's where we're going to go. So for the slides, is someone flipping for me? Do I have a remote? Okay. First couple slides are the government-wide activities, and that's all the activities of the city on a full accrual basis, except for the water and sewer. So that's what, go back up one. So that's what these slides represent. The first slide, which is gone. There we go. So this represents the expenses by area, general government, public safety, public works, and compares the expenses to the direct or program revenues associated with each of the functions, each of the areas. You can see you're used to moving that because you can lift up.
I see our public safety, and that would reflect our police department.
Police and fire, correct. So what this slide really depicts is the where does the property tax and state shared revenue get used? And that gets used to supplement the general government, a big chunk of public safety, a big piece of public works. And you can see streets there, the revenue actually exceeds the expenses. That's because it includes your Act 51 revenue, and a lot of the work done in those areas gets capitalized on the full accrual financial statements. That's why it means that. Okay, next slide. So, and this is a breakdown again with all of the governmental activities of where the revenue is coming from. You can see property taxes, by far the vast majority of it, about 14% is state shared revenue, and about 17%, the red there, is your operating grants. That includes your Act 51 revenue, the library's penal fines. I think one of the townships kicks in some money from the library, so those kinds of funds go in there. Okay. Now let's talk about this, the general fund. And this is on pages, this is the fund that kind of pay most attention to usually. But on pages 14 and 39 are two different general fund financial statements. So the general fund revenues, this year you can see the, again, the property taxes, the state shared revenues, and then the other category. You can see a nice increase after we had the fall and a few years back with property taxes. It's creeping back up, not quite up to the highest level that it was in 2013, but it's coming. State shared revenue has been steady for the last 5 years, just itty bitty increases, itty bitty decreases. And then the other category, last year that in other there was a jump because of the sale of 95 North Main Street. So that increased the revenue for the 1 year, so it looks like a little glitch for 2015, but other than that, it's been very steady.
The Sal the brewery, yeah.
The 95 North Main and the group.
Amazing. Ate there last night.
Yeah, I've had been there a couple times.
Someone else has nice tea shop across the street. Okay.
Then, so on page 39 is where the budget to actual information is for the general fund. And you can see the budget was to have a decrease in fund balance of about 52,000. The actual was an increase of about 53,000, so you finished about 104,000 ahead of where you initially projected to be, so, or with your amended budget, which is great. So you finished ahead of where you were projected. Next slide. This is the expenditures section of the general fund. You can see in 2015 under the general government function, there's a big bump on the light blue, and this year it's back down again. A big chunk of that was the attorney fees. There was also some other smaller items that I didn't write down, but I noticed there was nothing real huge. And then public safety, this was the first full year under the county contract, so there was a lot of ups and downs with a lot of different accounts, but basically the county contract was a little bit higher than all of the costs were last year. Last year was kind of a messy one, so that's
Now,
where
2014, there was yellow bar, that was project our police department that we had, and then the dip was
police and fire, correct.
Okay, and then
Yes.
blue, purple.
So the blue is kind of a mixture between the police department and the county contract, the transition, and then this year, 2016, was strictly the fire department along with the county.
Now, when did we buy our new fire truck? When did we buy our new fire truck?
2009.
Okay, so that's been a while. So that's not in there.
I could go back that far.
No.
Internal here would have been reflected. Yeah, there was a major purchase, 2014, the Expedition and turnout gear.
Yes.
So that
That
was
was
like
like 90,000.
fire up.
Yeah, and that explains a lot of that high.
I felt like there was a thing. That's what I was trying to remember.
There's a couple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then, next slide. So at the end of the day, the general fund balance as a percentage of your expenditures, that's what we kind of look at to kind of track it. And you can see it's at 64% this year, up a little bit from 60, and that's very high. I'll show you another slide way at the end that kind of compares you to other cities, but here it looks like the general fund's in really good shape. The rule of thumb is to keep it around 25%, and not go below that, because 25% represents about 3 months of expenditures. And you'll see West Michigan communities are generally a little bit better than that. So, okay, the next slide. This is just a quick glimpse of the sewer funds. The next one will be water funds. And you can see for the last several years, it's just been, just squeaking by. This year the income was 38,000, which was actually a little bit more than normally. In those numbers, you are covering your depreciation of the infrastructure. So it's real tight, but still doing good, getting all the bond payments made and all that stuff. Then the water fund, that one this year took a big decrease. There was only about 2,000 in increase. You can hardly see the difference between the lines there, but so it's just hanging on. But this year in the water fund, the depreciation expense was up, the interest expense was higher, and there was a lot of repairs that were made in the water fund.
We had a lot of upgrades.
That was that USDA fund that we did.
That wouldn't be reflected as a repair, but there were some ancillary things that may have been.
Yeah, we used like money that's left at the end that came in under bid. Okay.
Yeah, that might be this year.
Oh, that's true. It would be on this year.
At the end.
This is all pre-rate increase, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pre-rate, so we have.
Yeah, because this again goes back to June of 16.
As when we were looking at the managers, we aren't there yet, but his evaluation, one of the final questions was about things going 5 to 10 years in the future. And I guess I'm still unclear of like, do we need more in our water treatment plant? Like, where are we at with our water infrastructure? And I'm not asking everybody to answer me. I'm just saying, to me, that's still like I need to clear my head, like, do we need more funding directed there? Do we have enough coming in to match the outgo to meet the needs of maintaining it? Like, is that kind of what you're telling us?
But, yeah, when you look at this picture, you can see, for the last 4 years, before 2016, you had decent income that you were funding some future projects. Now, there's nothing, so I'm sure there's ongoing rate studies and everything.
The city actually just increased its water and sewer rates, so this coming audit should reflect that. So we should be back up to having it income.
Okay.
Just something to keep an eye on, as everything else.
And water's a big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up in Flint.
You got a lot of here.
I do. I absolutely love it here, but I'm very cognizant.
Okay.
Okay, before we go to the last slide, so in the footnotes, there's a couple of them I just wanted to point out to you on footnote number 2 on page 27 and 28. And this is right at the bottom of 27, the information's on 28. This is where we have to report to the state that you were over budget. They've already sent Darla and Nancy letters, and Darla has to respond to that, so. But when you go over budget, we have to report it. There were some pretty big overages, especially in the library fund. And basically some of the year-end budget amendments just didn't get done. That's what it appears. So that'll get corrected next year, I'm sure.
Yeah. When you hire someone 10 minutes before they're supposed to do something.
Yeah, or after.
After.
Yeah, after.
Even better.
I should state this is all pre-June 30th.
Right.
I wasn't here, Darla wasn't here.
Right.
I would emphasize that also.
I know.
Yeah.
Will that be my evaluation?
That's every time we ask a question, they said that. So,
Rightfully so.
yeah. So note 6, the long-term debt, just to point out, in the general obligation bonds, which is the generally funded bonds, you made payments of $205,000. Those bonds are down to $1.7 million at the end of the year, so that's in decent shape. And then, and the next page is your business type activity, or the water and sewer bonds. So you can see there were additions to the bonds of $2.7 million, and that's the USDA bond, and that's basically your federal funds that we had to audit. And then you made regular payments on the bonds as well, $196. So that has definitely gone up in water and sewer areas. So that's speaking of single audit. Jump over to page 55. That's where the single audit reports are. So on page 55, this is the internal control and compliance over the financial statements. There was a couple of findings. They're the same ones we had last year with regard to posting a whole lot of journal entries and doing the financial statements more than what we really should. I'm sure that's going to hopefully go away this year. 2 years ago, 2015 was the first year that we had that. And then 2016 was repeated. With the change in the administration and people leaving, there was more and more functions being done by single individuals. So you lose a lot of your internal controls as that happens.
We were scrambling trying to eliminate that.
Absolutely.
Couldn't happen.
Absolutely.
We have a very competent person on staff now that we want to have.
But it's a lot of turnover, though. The
That
clerk,
was huge.
financial director, and the city manager.
Yeah, one of the most I've seen. And
All
the
in-
clerk.
That's what I'm saying, and the clerk, all in the course of the year.
Absolutely.
That's a lot.
And then,
So,
so,
hooray.
yeah. And then the next report on page 57, this is the report that covers just the federal fund portion of it. And on page 59, that's your federal fund. You can see it's the same number as what the bond issuance is, 2779. There was a finding there as well, and that had to do with identification of federally funded equipment on your fixed asset records. So that's something that not a lot of people are aware of. Darla's aware of it now. Also, we issued a separate letter that had some additional action items are, and then you can bring a copy of it, but there was several minor control matters for staff to look into and get cleaned up. So we got through the audit, and the city is still okay.
Thank you.
So one more slide. So this is a comparison of how you compare to other cities. These are, we audit 13 cities. They're arranged by the biggest general fund budget to the smallest. Your general fund budget is about $1.5 million, and you can see you're the highest with this comparison. So
Great.
others are way down around 15%, all the way up to 60%. And we're equal. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
If there's any questions, I'm happy to try to address them.
On, we had the federal money, and we had a balance left over, and we spent it at the wastewater treatment plant to correct that now. Was that equipment that was upgraded had to be carried on the federal inventory?
Have to be identified as federally funded, yes.
I was curious
Yep.
about that, because we expended that money on it.
Yeah, anything that's capitalized that's used by federal money has to be identified.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
So you said that because we went over budget and we had to amend the budget, pulling money out of the general fund, which we had plenty of money in there because we have 60% of our operating expenses in the general fund. So did that, got a nasty letter from Lansing. When we go forward doing budget, is that something we should take into consideration? And maybe, is it better to not spend all of your budget than have to pull it out of the general fund to cover, even if what you're spending is basically the same amount of money?
The reason the state has a problem with it is because technically it's still legal to spend money that has not been budgeted.
Right.
So you should be budgeting it before it's spent. Whether you do that up front in the initial budget process, or if you amend the budget a couple times during the year as you go, because things happen.
So is it the issue that we didn't amend when we did it?
Correct.
Okay, not that we can't pull it out of the general fund
Correct.
to do those kind of
Just
things.
needs to be, it's just the timing of the amendments. They have to be done before the end of the year.
Got
It
it.
have to be done before the fall, the count goes delinquent.
Right.
So that's, and we didn't have treasure at that time, so not knowing, we wouldn't, so that's how this happened. But I'm sure we won't have that issue anymore.
Okay.
Yep.
It's just this.
I didn't know if it was just in general, you're not allowed to spend past the budget even with an amendment, if that's like now like no.
Can't spend no money.
You should never, it's illegal to spend over what's budgeted.
Okay.
That's why the state.
But you kinda met.
You
But you kinda met.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other buddy have questions or the?
I guess I'd have one question, and that is fund balance compared to the general fund. Do you have a percentage for me?
Fund balance compared to general fund.
Yeah. Because it looked like it was 60% for what? Revenues and expenditures?
That number, the general fund is about 60% of your expenditures plus transfers to other funds.
Okay.
Other funds, yes.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't understanding exactly what the language was there. I didn't get to look at it long enough.
That one has the slides, so you
Yeah, I'm sure.
can enjoy it at your leisure.
I love that. You can enjoy it at your leisure. We should put it on our website. I bet we'll get lots of clicks.
All right.
Thank you, thank you.
Yep.
If you would like, you can retire. You don't need to stay for the rest
Okay.
of this meeting.
I'll run at an appropriate time.
Thank you for your time. Mr. Womack.
Thank you. So, as you counselors should know, I was up kind of late last night working on some things I got hit with late yesterday as I was leaving. So that I think will generate some discussion today, unfortunately. If you don't mind, I'll start with discussion items.
Sure.
Letter A, use of the council chambers, fees and guidelines. The city's been approached on a number of occasions recently by groups and individuals who like to use the city hall for various meetings, whatever. And administration has attempted to accommodate them to the best of our ability. Sometimes they want to hold these meetings past 5 o'clock, which obviously requires staff to stay here. And I'm not going to require any of my staff members to do that. I try to do it if I can, but I just don't think it's appropriate. it's gotten to a point where I think we need to set some boundaries or guidelines or something to limit the number of people who are coming in and requesting it. I had an individual who comes in pretty regularly, and he forgot to let us know that he had changed his dates and times. Now he wants to be here tomorrow. We've got staffing issues. I just think I'd like to hear some policy direction from the council. What do you think we need to do with City Hall and making it available to people? Let's see here. IFT request for display pack. We had our IFT committee meeting the other day, and there was a recommendation from that committee to this body for a 12-year IFT. I think we'll have some time to discuss that on the record about that. It kind of plays hand in hand with the policy that we're going to talk about more in D. So C, establishing a subcommittee to narrow down the names for new walking park. Councilor Gross suggested this at the end of last meeting, so I wish we had talked about it at that time, but we generated a substantial list of names that people would like to see be walking park names. And I don't think it's appropriate nor fair to attempt to discuss 50 names at a council meeting. So I would ask you guys to establish a subcommittee, maybe narrow it down to 10 names, 5 names, something, which we could then bring back to the full council.
I would entertain volunteers. If not, then I can appoint. So whomever would like to.
I can go. Yeah, go, so you.
Certainly.
This was my idea. We got the committee.
Yeah, 3 or,
The 3 will be
Sub-quorum.
okay.
Pardon?
Yeah, sub-quorum number.
We can only have 3, so we have them.
Did you want it, Dan?
Thank you very much.
No, I was trying to indicate that I thought Rose would be a good choice.
Okay.
I agree.
Because I will do
Jerry
it.
gets my humor, thank you, Jerry.
Because I will do it but if someone wants it,
You're already in.
I'm in. Okay.
Can
We
we
have
have
3
a
people, so we'll proceed. If you like 4 of those names.
As far as sub-quorum goes, according to the MML, when they was here, anytime you have a subcommittee, even if it's a quorum of 1 or 2, it's still a quorum.
Well, it's not a quorum. We can't vote, but
We'll bring the
it's a public meeting, of which we need to keep minutes. And
Yeah, I guess I would say it just makes things easier if you have 3 people.
yeah.
We have it set, so they'll get the information, and somebody will take notes, and they'll present a couple of names, let's say narrow it down to 5, back to us, and then we can make that final selection.
When you're requesting is submitted by, what's your
February?
name?
I try to put the council agenda a week ahead of time, so a week.
Do you want it for the February meeting?
I'd like it, but
Okay.
Okay, let's shoot for the February meeting.
We have it here?
Sure.
I think I should.
Those things you better have it open publicly.
Well, that's why we'll have it here.
Right, it'll be here.
And there'll be notes, and we'll make it.
Posted.
We'll post it.
It'll be all legal people. All right, continue, Mr. Bowman.
D, the Cedar Springs Industrial Facilities Guidelines. So I originally had this as an action item. It was my hope that we would adopt the policy so we could then immediately apply the policy. But after our IFT committee meeting, which generated a significant amount of discussion, 2 things came to light. First of all, there were a lot of things to talk about. So I'd like to talk about these individual policies and see where the city council is leaning towards, so I can then redraft the policies to better reflect what our intentions are. And that being said, Mr. Clark came up with, I think, some additional policies from other cities I can review and reflect upon, and so I'll try to bring those again to the next council. But we do have a few I'd like to discuss today. And the second part of that is, I realize you don't need to adopt the policy to kind of use it in your deliberations. So adopting the policy makes it so outside, groups, companies can, know what they're getting into, I guess. But we did apply the guidelines to the various IFTs that we're looking at right now, and we can use that, as kind of an idea of what the recommendations are and whatnot for this council to then vote on. So you don't have to, I guess, adopt the policy right now, but I'd like to do it moving forward.
Yeah. Being on the IFT committee, it'll give a boilerplate for a business to fill out to know what they expect. And like I said, the IFT committee can look at all this and then award for instance, like we did with display pack, 12 years, just brick and mortar, we are not allowed to do personal property at 50%. So this will help things move and help us look a little more professional.
And be just even-handed, I'm assuming.
I don't
Yeah.
know what IFT stands for.
Industrial facilities tax.
Tax.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
And that's how I found the document about Corona, Michigan, because I didn't know what it was either, and Jerry asked me to be on the committee, so I was clearly catching up. I was a big curve.
So give me 2 minutes and I'll kind of give an explanation, and I'll talk about these three things. So the IFT is basically a tax abatement the city can offer to an organization, a company that will invest money into the city. It used to be both real and personal property. Now it's just real property that they can improve upon. So, the city gives up 50% of the property tax to encourage them to invest in the city. So the three things that we have here that would be eventually part of the policy. Use of personal property in addition to the real property to determine overall capital investments. Okay. So the company's going to come in and invest X number of dollars into the community, and we can then give them years of tax abatement based on how much they invest. Now, you can't give any personal property tax abatement, but what you could do, in theory, is use the amount of money that they're investing in both personal and real, and use that as part of the policy only. So say, they're doing $1 million investment in real property, but they're also investing, $2 or $3 million in personal. We could theoretically combine those amounts and then give them the points, just for years abatement, even though that abatement would only apply to real property. Does that make sense to everybody?
So let me spin it back at you, make sure I got it. So they would get credit in the form of years of tax abatement for personal property.
Right.
But they would only get essentially the 50% off your taxes of the real property.
Correct.
Correct.
And you don't have to, you certainly don't have to, but it's something I want to present to council as an option, because it would encourage, I think, companies to invest in personal property, even though we can't give them the tax abatement for the personal property. That's all.
Is it okay with the state of Michigan and the federal and all that to do that?
I don't see why not, because this is a local policy, and we're not giving them a tax abatement on personal property. We're only allowing it to be reflected in our policy towards real property. So it's kind of a screwy way to do things. And again, certainly not required, but I want to present it as an option. Number 2, use of number of employees instead of number of employees earning a certain wage. So the way the Corona guidelines were done and the way I initially brought it to council was that to get creditable points or years for the tax abatement, the company had to provide jobs that paid X number of dollars per year, being either twice the minimum wage or 3 times the minimum wage. I don't know if that's necessarily the best policy, because if you get a company that's going to bring in 75, 100 jobs, but they're only paying 12, 13, 14 bucks an hour, that's not sufficient to get the points for that tax abatement, years.
Right.
But we still want to encourage companies to bring in 75 or 100 jobs. So what we could do is shift that policy, basically one to the left. So I don't have the guidelines in front of me because my stupid computer's not working. But it's something like you get 1, 2, 3, or 12 years based on X number of jobs at twice the minimum wage, and then same thing for triple. So what we could do is make the double for any jobs, and then turn the triple into double the wage. Okay, if that makes sense, because I don't have the policy in front of me.
The current policy now that we've used in the past was to any job.
Yeah, I was going to say we didn't tie them to amounts of
Didn't
money.
tie it to a wage.
It was like 10 jobs per, I don't even know that we said they had to be quote unquote full time.
Then,
Did they? Okay.
okay.
And again, this is based on what the Corona guidelines are, and we're trying to adapt it to our local situation.
Right.
Number 3 is adding 1 point for years in business for a new category of 1 to 5 years. This would be basically giving all businesses 1 automatic per year. because the committee kind of felt that
Okay.
new companies were being punished, when in reality we should be encouraging new companies.
Right.
So we would just add an extra category, and then, you know, everyone 6 to 10, and then 10 to 15, and 15 and above would go up one. So those were the three that I had for discussion for today. And I guess based on what Mr. Clark found for me, we'll have more to talk about next time. 7E, Farmers Market Ordinance. I drafted a pretty significant ordinance that would do a couple things. First thing it would do is it would change the zoning ordinances to permit farmers markets in a couple different zoning places in the city. It's currently only a special land use in one place, but I wanted to open up more of the city as options, primarily because the staging area is in one district, and then I think it's the parking lot behind the library is in a different district, and then, just north of where the library is a different district, so I included all three districts. But you don't want to also give carte blanche to people to hold their farmers market, so I added a whole new category to the transient merchants ordinance, which would then put this under the aegis of the city manager's office, which could then promulgate some additional rules that way. So the overall effect is to take it away from the planning commission, which is a very slow deliberative body which requires 15 days notice and a meeting and a vote and all that, and gives it to the city manager where he can approve it on a day-to-day basis. And I just think it gets rid of kind of the cumbersome
smoother.
bureaucraticness of the current system.
And I'm assuming if they're turned down, they can appeal to the.
Yeah, there's
commission.
an appeal to the city council.
Or to the, okay, that's fine too.
Sounds really
As
good.
long as they have an appeal
Yeah,
to somebody.
no, I wouldn't present something to you that makes me the final appeal.
We've been there.
Yeah, not anymore.
Good. Thank you.
Action items 8A, if no one has any questions.
Well, I do, if we're going to do it now. The standards set up for these special events is going to be determined by basically planning commission's same guidelines for site plans. Well, parking, restroom facilities, things of that nature.
Well, it's not special events, it's farmers market only.
Well, I'm saying similar to it.
And the problem with doing that is now you're reverting back to the whole problem of the original situation, which is a 15-day notice period, and you got 9 people deliberating and all that. There's a certain amount of trust you have to put into the city manager or the market manager to promulgate those types of rules. Now that being said, I'm not the know-all be-all. I'll certainly be having discussions with people to figure out what the best situation will be regarding parking and bathrooms and all that. But it's just making it easier to do. So I'm not planning on bizarre of the rules. This will just be a discussion item that we'll have to do on a regular basis to make sure the rules are working.
For very targeted, specifically farmers market.
Yes.
Not every community
No,
event.
just farmers markets. Anyone else? Okay. Action item A, resolution 2017-01, approve the CS manufacturing request for the IFT. I didn't write it down in front of me, like I said, I've got computer problems. Someone on the IFT committee, is this 12 years that we
Yes,
approve? Okay.
10, wasn't it, Jerry?
I thought it was 10.
It says 10 on here.
When I approved it,
10 years
long
at 50%.
time ago.
Okay. So the you're right, I remember that. So the IFT committee recommended 10 years, thank you. Recommended 10 years, but I think it was the opinion, and this is my opinion, because I'm not speaking for the IFT committee as a whole. It was my opinion that the IFT committee wasn't quite sure about what the rules were at that time.
Correct.
And so we, Madam Clerk, ran this application through the potential policy that we're going to be discussing about IFTs. Madam Clerk, how many years did the policy recommend?
I believe it was 12.
Okay. So, based on the policy as it's currently, the recommendation was for 12. So obviously, this body is only receiving a recommendation from the IFT committee, and it's able to look at it's able to look at
Prior to
anything.
the policy being implemented.
Yes. This body can look at anything it wants, and it can choose any number of years it wants. but based on policy, it recommends 12.
Okay. And the IFT committee didn't have that